This is camera. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Is the camera in the zoom me? Yes, and the zoom it's a you. You can.
If you just
And that-
speaking into it, not this.
Yeah. Testing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, all right. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's great honor and privilege to welcome you all to this exceptional seminar today. On behalf of Kasetsart University, I'm your MC, the Thanapon Kamswat from the International Affairs Divisions. Please allow me to inform you about the today program in briefly. We are going to start with the welcoming session, the welcome address by the acting president, Dr. Jongrak Washinrat, followed by the presentation of token appreciation. Then Professor Mark Ogden will be invited to give keynote speech on the topic of From Vision to Reality, 13 University, Ascension to Top 1%. So after that, we will have about 30 minutes for a Q&A session. So yeah, to begin with, I'm delighted to call upon acting president of Kasetsart University, Dr. Jongrak Washinrat, to deliver a welcoming remarks.
The Professor Mark and the honorable speakers, fellow members of Kasetsart University. This is a privilege to address you all this morning for such a fortunate occasion. This is not often that we have the opportunity to ascertain the accomplishments of these old partners. Today we will listen and explore the visionary path of Curtin universities, where it has reached the top 1% of the university worldwide. Before we start, allow me to extend a special welcome to the distinguished speakers, Professor Mark Ogden, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Faculty of Science and Engineering, Curtin University. I would like to sincerely thank all for honoring our invitation to spite of you very busy and tight schedule, and believe that this seminar will open more opportunities for Kasetsart universities, executives and fellow members for whom your insight and perspectives are particularly relevant. My gratitude is giving for those from its department who cooperate and contribute to this important event. Finally, let me wish you the fruitful event. I am delighted in declaring the seminar open, and am confident that this seminar will achieve this objective and hopefully be reward back to both institutes tremendously. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Dr. Jongrak Washinrat, for your welcome speech. So I think before we start for your seminar, we will present the token appreciation and maybe in the room for our group photo first.
Okay.
Yes.
Take photos first. Give them some souvenir.
So right now we have come to the seminar session. The seminar will be in the topic of From Vision to Reality, Curtin University Ascension to Top 1%. Please give a big applause to Professor Mark Ogden, the Pro Vice Chancellor from the Faculty of Science and Engineering, Curtin University.
Thank you very much, President Chongrak, for that very kind introduction, and thank you, distinguished senior leaders from across the university in the room and the people online. It was a pleasure to receive the invitation to give this seminar today. I will do my best to take you through the journey that Curtin University has been on for the last number of years, and see if we can find some points to discuss around how what Curtin has done might be translated to Kasetsart University. So, one too many. Okay, so this is one of the ranking systems, the QS ranking and Curtin's trajectory, and that trajectory, I'm sure, is the reason that we are here talking about Curtin's performance over the last 10 years. To make sense of this journey that's been so successful, I have to take you back into the history of Curtin University. So please be patient and bear with me as I take you back in time, because our history is a very important part of why we've been successful in more recent times. So this is Curtin now. We're a global university. We have a number of global campuses in different locations around the Indian Ocean rim, and I'll talk quite a bit about that over the next few slides. Our major headquarters is in Western Australia, where our main campus is, and we have another 4 campuses within Western Australia as well, all of which are part of our history and again underpins our more recent success. So we have about 60,000 students across our various locations, with about 1/4 of those being international students. So I have to go back in time, and we're going to go quite a long way back in time by Australian standards. So technical education in Western Australia commenced in 1900. And this is where we at Curtin University trace our history to. So the Perth Technical School started operating in the centre of what is now the Central Business District of Perth in 1900. And these new buildings were constructed to start technical education that mainly related to the needs of the mining industry, so particularly gold mining. So we have our origins very closely linked to the needs of both the mining sector and the petroleum energy sector. As a side note, Curtin University reacquired those 2 buildings more recently, and so we now have these as very nice meeting places in the centre of the city. So if you do, please do visit us in Perth, and we would be delighted to host you at the Bentley campus or in these centre of the city locations. Okay, so now we jump forward about 40 years to June 1960, and the needs of Western Australia's technical training meant that the government agreed to approve the creation of the Western Australian Institute of Technology. So this is the institute that came before Curtin University, but this is the direct predecessor of Curtin. So you can see that while we're a young university, we actually have a relatively long history delivering tertiary education to these sectors. And a really important point is that second dot point in 1969, we merged with or brought on board the Western Australian School of Mines. And it's really important to note that the West Australian School of Mines was established in 1902 in Kalgoorlie, where we still have a campus. And so in 1969, that entity was merged with the West Australian Institute of Technology. And again, this gives Curtin a very long and deep history in working with mining and both with mining engineers, geologists, geophysicists, and so on. So we have a long, deep history in that space. So again, another 25 years or so later, Curtin University of Technology was launched in 1987. So the West Australian Institute of Technology became Curtin University of Technology. And in making that transition, Curtin started to focus on having a global presence outside of Australia. So you can see, as the slide says, we opened our campus in Sarawak in Malaysia in 1999. So we just had a 25-year anniversary of that campus. The next campus we opened was in Singapore in 2008. And this was part of a long-term strategy to have a global presence. So places where we could educate students outside of Australia, to work with local communities, and also, frankly, to raise our profile outside of Australia as it's an important part of having impact, and it does relate to rankings. And then in 2010, as a part of the journey that we'd been on, as the university started to broaden out the areas in which it worked into areas that were clearly not technology, the decision was made to change the name of the university from Curtin University of Technology to simply Curtin University, recognising that we'd now become a comprehensive university. Two important steps on that journey that were initiated as soon as that name change came through was to establish a law school, and that was launched in 2013. And very importantly, in terms of building profile and research activity, the Curtin Medical School was launched in 2017. There's also been a range of large developments both on our main campus in Bentley. So we now have a hotel, a supermarket, 10 restaurants all on campus, all of which serves to attract people to come to the campus. And we have a presence in another suburb of Perth next to one of the hospitals to provide training for our medical students and nurses. In terms of our impact on rankings, I would emphasise for us, we determined we'd grown our research footprint as much as we could without a medical school, and establishing a medical school allowed us to access government funds that we simply could not access without a medical school. So that was a significant step change in how we were able to grow our research footprint. So this is where we are now, top 1% in the world, recognised for research excellence. But I would just emphasise on the right-hand side there, we were recently assessed from the employer's perspective. So the people who take on our students after graduation, we were ranked as the best university in Australia in terms of the quality of our graduates. I mention that in particular because, as we'll talk about in a minute, research profile feeds very directly into rankings, but growing the research footprint while continuing to look after our students and make sure that they're ready to be employed, make sure that they have a really positive experience, is something that we've been really focused on. But the more you invest in research, the less you have to invest in these other areas, and finding that balance is something that Curtin's been thinking very carefully about. And I'll explain as we get to the end of this presentation what that means for our rankings journey. Okay, and this slide just emphasises, the text is too small for me to read from where I am, but we're a comprehensive university. We have a history, a deep history in mining, petroleum, gas, those sorts of, and geology, geophysics, but we now are a comprehensive university delivering training across not every single area of activity, but we're a very comprehensive university, and that again is an important part of having building recognition and global awareness. All right, and so our current strengths, as we would describe them, we have a values-based culture. So there's a range of behaviours that we expect from our staff and our students. The Bentley campus, our main campus, has been transformed from a fairly sparse pine plantation when I was younger to what I think is a very attractive campus and an important part of the student experience. We've been growing our campus in Kalgoorlie, which is an important part of our rankings journey. We've remained true to our origins as an institute of technology, though, by continuing to work closely with industry, and we work closely with industry in terms of what we teach to students and the research that we do. It's not that we don't do fundamental research, blue sky research, but the bulk of our research is one way or the other linked with industry. The top 200 worldwide in rankings, which is, I guess, one of the reasons why we're here today, and the graduate outcomes and that global footprint. So I just want to emphasise the global footprint, because we feel that's been a really important part of our strategy, and in fact the global presence has driven us to think about rankings rather than rankings leading us to think about global presence. So this is where we are now. We're in Perth, Malaysia, Singapore, Mauritius and Dubai with formal Curtin campuses, and we've been for 20 years we've been working with the Sri Lanka Institute for Information Technology in Colombo for over 20 years, and we're poised for that to become a formal Curtin campus, which will give us a good, strong presence all around the Indian Ocean. So these are very important pathway options for students in articulation agreements and so on. It gives students the choice of spending, for example, a year in Malaysia with lower fees before they come to Perth, or they can complete an engineering degree all 4 years at our Malaysia campus. Our offerings are a bit different across the different locations, but for example, engineering, we offer in Perth, Malaysia, Dubai and Sri Lanka. And you can do all 4 years of an engineering degree in any of those locations. All right, so I just have to talk a little bit about me for this to make sense. So I'm a chemist by training. I know there's at least one other chemist in the room here today, which is always nice. I did my PhD in Perth, but at the University of Western Australia. And after that, I had a postdoctoral fellowship at University of Oxford. That's my prehistory. The more important part here is my Curtin history. So I started in 1997 on a Curtin postdoctoral fellowship, and I'll talk more about that scheme as we work through the strategy. Went through the ranks, and I've been in leadership roles since 2011, on and off, and in my current role as Private Vice Chancellor for the last 3 years. I just share that with you because it will allow me to give you my perspective as I was moving along Curtin's journey as to how we've underpinned our rankings journey at the same time. All right, so that's a lot of that's precursor, and you've been very patient, but we'll now dive into the strategic journey. So the next slide is a very busy slide, and depending on whether you're close to a screen or not, you may or may not be able to read that. The important point is there's 3 horizons here. So Horizon 1 was a real focus on, I'm going to look to my right to read some of these things. So I just want to emphasise in that first Horizon 1, the law school and the medical school being launched, growth in our global footprint, digital strategy, and we had initiated well before this time strategic research recruitment, and again I'll talk more about that. Horizon 2 is the only spot where you'll see a specific strategic focus on rankings. So the decision was made at that time that we needed to be a top 200 university, not to be a top 200 university, but we were finding some challenges in moving our global strategy forward, because there were some conversations and some governments that wouldn't talk to us about establishing a campus if we weren't in a top 200 rank. So that's really what drove us to think hard about how do we invest to lift our rankings. And I will I can talk very specifically about what we did there, but again, it's important that I take you on the longer term journey because the underpinnings were needed for that strategy to be successful. And then Horizon 3 is where we are now, and you'll notice ranking's not there anymore. Indeed, research is only there on one of those dot points. And so we've got a real focus now on social good, service, sustainability, teaching quality, and impact and commercialisation. So having an impact on all of the communities where we are working. So a global university with a local impact is one of the underlying principles. However, that's easy to say because now we are a top 200 university, so I completely understand rankings are part of our reality. And so it is, depending on where you are on your strategic journey, it does matter. All right. So now in terms of my journey at Curtin, you can see the brackets there. Horizon 1 is about where I came into leadership roles, Horizon 2, and then Horizon 3 disappears off that chart. So that's just to set it in context. So let's just look at some of the rankings and the measures that we see, because it's not a consistent story. And I'm sure if you're familiar with university rankings, you know the parameters vary. So this is a rankings graph, and the brackets at the bottom, there's 3 there, and that lays out the Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3 strategies. So this looks like a brilliant strategy. So Horizon 2, the central bracket, was where we started focusing on rankings, and we seem to have just chose to rise in the rankings, and we did it. The reality of that story is not that simple, but this is certainly quite a compelling graph. But that's one ranking. The Shanghai ranking is much more focused on research than the other 2 rankings I'm going to show you. And really the only way to lift in this ranking is to start to produce or hire Nobel Prize winners. That's the reality of it. And that is not a game that we've chosen to play. So we're very satisfied with our steady ranking here on this system. And we recognise that this is not the space where we're going to lift any further. And then the one I showed you earlier, the QS, this is more balance between teaching, research and reputation. And again, that Horizon 2 strategy looks to have been spectacularly successful in terms of lifting our ranking. I've got the subject rankings here just to make a point about that deep history that you have. You see, we work very hard to retain our number 2 ranking in the world in mining and mineral engineering. We're behind the Colorado School of Mines. But remember, we merged with the WA School of Mines that started working in this area in 1902. So we've been, as an institution, we've been working in mining and minerals engineering for well over 100 years. So this is not new for us. And you'll see our top 50 rankings are all related to that space. So the earth, marine science, geology, geophysics, petroleum engineering. These are the areas that we've, as an institution, we've been working for over 100 years. So these things take time, but these rankings, those subject areas do underpin our high rankings. And you can see the areas that Curtin's moved into more recently are moving up, steadily up the rankings, but they are lower ranked because we've been in that area for a less amount of time. I don't think I need to make any more points on that. That's interesting. Half a transition. Okay. So we're talking about Horizon 2, where we focused on rankings and that very effective strategy, and I will talk in detail about it. But I want to talk about this period of time from 1997 through to 2011 and what Curtin did over that period of time that underpins the success that came when Horizon 2 was launched. So I joined Curtin when it was 10 years old as a university. So it became a university in 1987. I joined in 1997. I was recruited at a time where the staff who'd been working for the West Australian Institute of Technology were starting to retire. And a point I probably should have made earlier, but I'll make it now, when this institution was the West Australian Institute of Technology, there was no research. Research, in fact, was not allowed. Anyone doing research at that time had to do it in secret. So management wasn't allowed to know that research was happening. So there was some research, but it was very small scale, under the desk, as it were. So we've only had 10 years of being a university, and we've had to transition to building a workforce that can do research. So the important point here is after 10 years, there's significant numbers of retirement of the staff who are not research active. So this created capacity for us to employ active researchers, and that was important, and it was very strongly focused on. And a big part of that is this Curtin postdoctoral fellowship scheme. So I came in the first round of this. So it was commenced in 1997 and it ran for about 20 years. And to emphasise the scale of that investment, every year, somewhere between 5 and 10 fellows were recruited. And we were recruited based on our research track records, our capacity to teach, and we were effectively, in American terminology, these were tenure track positions. So we were promised a continuing position at Curtin. We were given the first 3 years in this role purely doing research and fully funded by the centre of the university. So the local faculty didn't have to pay my salary for the first 3 years. Then there were 2 years where it was 50-50 and I had a 50% teaching load, and then I became a normal teaching and research academic. So if you think about that, the university was bringing in, certainly in the early days, 10 of these people each year. So in steady state, the centre of the university was paying 30 salaries of junior level B academics to do research. So this was a really significant insertion of research strength, bench strength, capability and experience. And all of these people were given 3 years to just focus on getting their research track records going. And it was very expensive. So the centre of the university was supporting 30 academic salaries in steady state for about 20 years. Many of the people who came in, and I'm one of them, are now either senior leaders in the university or senior researchers running very substantial research programs. I make the point very strongly here that without this investment that started in 1997, the Horizon 2 strategy to lift our research rankings would have been impossible because we wouldn't have had the research workforce to do the work to lift the rankings. So what looks like an overnight success is actually built on this 20 to 30 year program of recruiting strong research staff who were brought in to be ideally career-long academics at Curtin, and I'm one of them, and there are a significant number of us still with Curtin. There was, in parallel with that, targeted recruitment of senior academics. So, for example, again, to personalise the story, I came into Curtin and worked for Professor Gordon Parkinson. He's a Cambridge-educated professor who was working in industry at the time, and he was brought in as a professor who built a significant research program. He's now retired, but that research area went from nothing when Gordon started in about 1997 to a fully established, very successful ongoing research program in crystal growth control. That targeted recruitment is a challenging area, and I'll talk more about the pros and cons of that later. As I said, the Institute of Technology had no research, so the understanding of managing workload and allowing time for staff to do research was developed over time, and it's a long journey to get workload management right, but it was a significant change from 1997 to 2017 to give staff time to do research and recognise the importance of that. And I'll keep talking about this as well, research culture. So if you don't have a strong research culture, you can't invest in research because the money won't be well spent. So again, the Curtin postdoc scheme, the targeted recruitment, has built a research culture that could support a significant investment of funds. And there's the broadening to become a comprehensive university from an institute of technology. Again, an important part of the rankings. All right, so my message here is there was a 15-year journey of targeted investment and strategic thinking that underpins that Horizon 1 strategy that we saw on the previous slide. So it's not come from nowhere. All right, so let me talk now in a bit more detail around the Horizon 2 strategy. So as we said, we had the Horizon 1 strategy was focused on continuing to build our research culture. There was some significant academic staffing changes in that time as well. So some things the Australian system can do, such as making some positions redundant. The academic reshaping and equip is code for some positions being made redundant, other positions being brought in, and equip is the same code for the professional staff organisation. So with all of that, what did we actually do in 2017 to lift the rankings? Building on that strong history, a strong focus on research, culture and quality, the university decided to invest significant funds on targeted initiatives in research, large scale, well leveraged. So I'll share, it's not in the slides, but I'll just share with you verbally. Our Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research had $35 million to invest every year in research to focus on uplifting our rankings. So the investments were made in areas where there was external funding that could be leveraged and where the research activities would generate outputs that would have a clear impact on our rankings. I will give you a specific example. A significant part of those funds was invested in radio astronomy. So Curtin was able to invest and attract, working with UWA, the Square Kilometre Array. I don't know if you're aware of that project, but it will be, when built, the largest radio telescope ever built. And even now the precursor instruments are generating amazing data in radio astronomy. So why is that so significant? One, it raises our international profile. We have astronomers coming to us with outstanding track records who want to work at Curtin because we are leading the Square Kilometre Array project. Also, these projects that are at the cutting edge of radio astronomy routinely generate papers in Nature and Science. So there would be at least probably 5 papers every year from this group that goes into either Nature or Science. So strategically, it's a big investment of our funds, a big investment of state government funds, Australian government funds and international funds. But by having enough money to be at the table, we've brought a very significant project to Western Australia and our university. And that sort of work has a direct impact on rankings. We've also invested using these funds in other areas such as trace DNA analysis, which sounds sort of not very exciting, but ancient DNA analysis is another area that routinely finds its way into Nature and Science. So Professor Morten Allentoft leads this area. He was recruited from the University of Copenhagen. Earlier this year, he had 3 back-to-back Nature papers because of the work he was doing with ancient DNA and around Viking movements. Also, environmental DNA analysis is becoming the state of the art for looking at environmental impact, especially in oceans, harbours and so on. And so that is another high impact area that tracks significant funding and also has an impact on rankings around sustainability. And there are many of these areas, but the key message is the university made a centralised decision to invest significant sums of money every year with a specific intent on lifting the rankings. And it clearly worked. But that investment was only possible because of the strength of the research culture that had been built up over the previous 20 years. Without that investment over the 15 to 20 years prior, we wouldn't have had the people like Professor Morten Allentoft, Professor Stephen Tingay and so on to sustain that investment and ensure that the money was spent to generate quality and not quantity. It's a very important part. How am I doing for time? It's not liking my transitions. All right, so I'm getting towards the end here. My personal view on in terms of takeaways from Curtin's journey, play to your strengths. And so while we've broadened out as a university, we still are very focused on mining engineering, energy engineering, these are the areas that we came from that started in 1900 and that they play a core part in the strength of our research programs. And we won't, and industry investment, and we're not walking away from those areas as we broaden out. I've said this a few times, there's no point in throwing large sums of money into an ecosystem unless you have the researchers there that can actually use the money in a strategic way to successfully invest. Our view is now we sit in the top 200, which is easy to say when you're in the top 200. Ideally, rankings in themselves are not a strategy. You aspire for a ranking for the reasons it will impact on what you can do as an institution. So for us, that initial motivation to make it into the top 200 was driven by our recognition that the rankings would support our global strategy. There are a range of reasons why you might want to have a high ranking, but our argument is if you get your strategy right, the rankings should emerge naturally. Again, easy to say once we've made it into the top 200. Targeted recruitment, I just flagged that there. We have done that with success, but we have also done that where it hasn't worked. If you get 50% success rate recruiting senior people in to retain them and have them succeed in the new environment, my experience is 50% success is doing well. So again, it's expensive and can be complicated. Really emphasising, and I'm sort of saying the same thing twice with this dot point and the second one, we've really spent a lot of time focusing on quality outputs in research and de-emphasising quantity. So there's a real danger, I believe, in setting numeric targets. So, excuse me, 10 papers per annum as a performance target runs the risk, if you don't have a really strong research culture, it runs the risk of driving down your quality as people very sensibly strive to meet targets. My argument is that if you're publishing low quality papers in large numbers, it's actually going to make it difficult to rise in rankings. Depends on the ranking, but at the end of the day, the ones that are driven by metrics, it's about citations, and it's the high quality papers that correlate with citations. So you need to think very carefully about where you're publishing and why you're publishing. And my unsolicited advice is be very careful about setting numeric targets of how many papers per annum. It depends so much on the discipline, the sub-discipline, and the real danger is that it can drive a reduction in quality. And where we're at on our journey now, the student experience versus research intensity is a real challenge. I can't speak to the Thai system, but I'll say what we observe in the Australian system. There's an inverse correlation between research intensity and the student's perception of their experience. So if the universities that are typically highly ranked, very strong in research, the scores they get on student experience and teaching quality are low. We don't want to play that game. We have a strong track record in student experience and teaching quality, and we don't want to compromise that. What does that mean for our strategy? It means we're not striving to increase our rankings further. Our strategy is to stay established in the top 200 because we believe further investment in focus on research will start to force us to compromise on the student experience and teaching quality, and that is not what we want to be as an institution. Every institution deals with this differently, but I'm just sharing that's where Curtin is at. All right, so that's pretty much all I had to present today. This is our current strategy. You'll notice that research really doesn't appear there because we're very comfortable with where our research is. Our research strength is business as usual. Our focus and change over the next 5-7 years up to 2030 is to start to focus on impact on community and society, sustainability, and partnership. And so I'll just finish by saying it's a real pleasure to be here today. It's my third visit to your university, and emphasising that partnership aspect. I really look forward to growing the strength of Curtin University and Kasetsart University partnership. And I'm very happy to explore opportunities for that. I'm also very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mark, for your spectacular seminar. Maybe we give some time for the questions. Maybe if any attendees from the online channel, please do not hesitate to send the question. So our team will check your question through the chat box. And any participant in this room, if you have question, please do not hesitate to raise your hand.
So thank you very much, Professor Mark Ogden, for your experience in Curtin University. It's very excellent because you can double within 10 years, like from ranking 300 to 150 something, and for 400 to 200 for time higher education. That is very excellent for your universities. And you share your experience to our universities. You said about, I'm not sure I understand correctly, I'm not sure, but anyhow, you talk about we must concern about your university strength. Like when I saw your profile, your strength in like a physical science, like the mining, like geology, something, because you top 50. But you still just open the Faculty of Medicine just only 2017, right? Just only 5 years ago or 6 years ago. After you open the Faculty of Medicine, are there some positive or negative in your university now? And how about your staff? Because of course your staff understand the strength in physical, but you open like biology, because medicine is one kind of biology. So of course, Kasetsart also, we just opened the Faculty of Medicine 3 years ago. So we can learn from you. And also for nursing, just 2 years. That means we should learn from you how impact and how you guess, how you try to do for the Faculty of Medicine or Faculty of Nursing. Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. I guess health sciences is a different faculty, so it's not my direct area, but I'll do my best. One thing is we've been teaching nursing, and we've been teaching areas like pharmacy, occupational therapy, physiotherapy for a long time. So the related areas we're well established. I think that's been an important part of our medical school getting up and running quite smoothly, because we had a lot of the health links into the hospitals and training, because one of the big challenges is finding places for the doctors to train in hospitals, for us at least, in Western Australia. So we had that advantage. It's definitely, and as I said in the introduction, one of the motivations for a medical school is, in our system, it opens up access to the NHMRC, which is medical funding that we previously could access very little of. That's still early days. It's going to take time to establish those research programs, but it has improved. So it's on a good trajectory. We've graduated our 2 batches of students now. That in terms of the challenges, and sitting in a different faculty, my observation is medical schools are really expensive. The staff are expensive. The infrastructure is expensive. So I think, the university was prepared for that. But in terms of impact on operating budget, it is a significant challenge. As I said, we had the advantage of having quite a bit of related health areas already active, but it is an ongoing challenge. But it is we can only take 60 students every year, and we get something like 600 applications. So it's a very popular program and students have to work very hard to get into it. So it's early days, but you see where in psychology and pharmacy, we have rankings. That's not related to the new medical school. Those areas have been with Curtin for quite a long time. So that's why that's happened. I would expect to see those areas grow in ranking and for the research areas related to medical sciences to start to appear in the rankings. But at least that's going to be at least 5 years away. It's quite complicated and long term to establish some of these research programs. I don't think I gave you any easy answers there, but it's a challenging path.
Is there anything else question? Maybe from the online channel? So you can turn on your microphone if you have one.
When we saw the rankings of your university, the physical science and physical engineers still very strong, but for biology is a bit lower than. I cannot see. That's only like environmental science still in your ranking 151 something. Are there the problem for biology in your universities? Like agriculture, like biology, are there not strong like this, or are there some problem?
There's a couple of factors there. So we have some significant research activities in agriculture, particularly looking at crop disease. So we've been funded significantly in that space, but it's very demand driven, so close to industry, and the history of that entity has been to have impact on the grains industry that doesn't show up in publications. So they've been encouraged strongly over the last 5 years by me in part and the external funders to start to build a publication program, and that's happening. So I'd expect that their papers sit somewhere between agriculture and molecular biology. We do have activity in those areas, but the reality of it is the University of Western Australia across the river is stronger in the biological sciences. And so part of the reason for this difference is our history and where we've invested. Again, I think the establishment of the medical school is likely to drag a lot of those areas up, but it's definitely true. It reflects that list really does reflect the history of the institution and where we have been focused on it. It is in engineering and the physical sciences. So my faculty, we have 4 faculties in the university. We have science and engineering, we have health sciences, we have humanities, and we have business and law. My faculty historically has generated over half of the research activity of the university. So our research footprint has been dominated by the physical sciences and engineering. The good news for the university is health sciences is rapidly catching up with us, and that's the impact of the medical school. But these sort of rankings are lagged into history. So I would expect it'll take another 5 years before you'll start to see a direct impact on subject rankings. But again, history is everything in this. The history is that the University of Western Australia was stronger in the biological side. And so part of this is occupying a space that's free in our local environment for our strength.
Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to ask for your suggestion about when I look at the third horizon that I think that this is the time for the third horizon, and then you mentioned about the teaching quality. Can you give me an idea that what is the policy at the Curtin University that you try to because we have already high quality staff, but in terms of teaching quality, yes.
That's a really good and hard question, managing teaching quality. So the measure that we have, the federal government runs a survey of graduating students every year, and that gives us a measure of teaching quality. We also have internal surveys that students, when they finish a unit, complete. And it's a challenging area, right? Because is the ranking low because the subject's hard, or is the ranking low because the teaching quality is low? So in terms of assessing where we're at, I try and assess my faculty against similar faculties at other institutions, because I see no reason why we can't strive to be the best in teaching quality in science and engineering in similar institutions around Australia. So the Australian Technology Network of Universities, for example. And we can have a long discussion around how accurate student surveys are in terms of assessing teaching quality. But I do think my faculty can improve. And so how are we going about that? It's really about, we have survey results for individual units, and the strategy I've taken is to simply look at the bottom 3 in a school and just see how we can support in simple ways to lift things. So our Vice Chancellor, my President, her view is that you can't maybe make a very poor teacher a really high quality teacher, but no one wants to be a poor teacher. And with some simple interventions, you can take that poor teacher into an average quality teacher. And it's really about having a conversation with people. And I think the challenge, I don't know what your culture is like here. In Australia, it's very hard to, crack open the classroom and work with the academic staff because they tend to be a bit defensive about it. So it's a slow cultural change. And one of the strategies I strongly believe in, we do it in chemistry, it's my history, is team teaching. So no unit is delivered by one academic, because if people teach in teams, they share ideas and you start to spread a positive culture of teaching. But it's a really hard area, teaching quality, and again, academics get very concerned about it, but it's really ultimately about giving the students the best possible experience. And so it's a journey. And science and engineering is historically where the lowest scores have been, and part of my job is to just lift us up. So that's the sort of approaches I'm taking, but it's not easy. By the way, I'm very open to suggestions on how to do it.
Okay, I have one more question. So from your presentation, you have presented about how you climb up the QS league table. Is your university interested in time higher education at all, or do you have any specific strategy to deal with time higher education rankings?
As of right now, we don't have any specific strategy to focus on any specific rankings. I guess across that Horizon 2 journey, there was a very clear analysis that said we had to improve our research profile in terms of outputs to lift in the rankings, but also we recognised that some rankings parameters were simply beyond what we could achieve with the level of investment we wanted to make. So right now, no. I mean, the line, if Curtin's chief strategy officer was here, he would be saying Curtin is aiming to do what it wants to do strategically in terms of having an impact on society, our staff and our students. And if we get that right, then the rankings will follow. But I acknowledge completely that that's an easy thing to say when you're in the top 200 already. So it's tricky, but I don't think we ever really did a ranking by ranking analysis. Now, that said, I know that our number 2 ranking in mining and minerals engineering depends on citations, H-index of our outputs in those areas, our industry reputation and our employer reputation. because that's such an important subject ranking for my faculty. I know it way too well. And I know that our employer ranking is very high. Our H index is very high. Our citation is very high. Sorry. Industry employer reputation, but academic reputation is another parameter. Our academic reputation is low because people don't know where Curtin University is. And there's a select few around the world that are aware of Curtin University. That's the reality. Even with all of our presence around the global rim, our academic reputation in mining and mineral engineering is by far our lowest score of the 4 parameters that make up that ranking. There's a limit to what we can do, but we are mindful of that, and we're trying to do some work with exchanging academic staff and that sort of thing to lift our reputation. But I would argue we should be doing that anyway, because it's a great thing for the university to have academic exchange with universities from around the world. So I don't know if I quite answered your question, but I think if it's are we doing a direct analysis of a ranking scheme and focusing specifically to uplift it, the answer is no. And the reality, I have a personal bit of a philosophical problem with being too responsive to rankings, because these we're responding to the inputs from organisations that are not universities, and the risk is any of these rankings can be changed in a moment, and a person can make a decision in Times Higher Education or QS or wherever, and suddenly the rankings change. And so I think you have to be very careful not to deviate your university strategy in response to rankings. We have an awareness, and we probably make a few sort of tactical responses to some of the rankings. So for me, the number 2 ranking in mining and minerals engineering is just very important. You can argue how significant it is, but it is important. It's a good publicity tool. So we're mindful of looking after that. And the reality of it is that the H index and the citation parameters that are really high don't come out of mining engineering. They come out of geology, geophysics, and the petroleum engineering areas. But where they publish is picked up under the mining and minerals engineering section in that particular system, which just speaks to the weirdness that rankings can generate, because it's their decision which journals they count, not ours. But I have to look after my geologists and my geophysicists, and they are outstanding fundamental researchers who've been very strong at Curtin for decades. And it's actually their performance that underpins our ranking in mining and minerals engineering. So these things don't fall by organisational units. The rankings can spread in strange ways. It's an interesting thing to look at the detail of that ranking, because the publications, very few of the publications that matter come out of our mining engineering area. But the industry reputation, absolutely critical. And that's what the mining engineers do really well. They work very closely with the industry, and our graduates are employed before they graduate. So we're training them in the right way. So that's a very important part. I'm not demeaning what the mining engineers do. I'm just saying the high impact research comes out of geology and geophysics, where we have genuine world-class analytical methodologies and infrastructure to analyse rocks. It's what we're really good at. And so I'm not sure if I didn't answer your question, you can come and talk to me after.
No, I just asked because I read in the news that you also did well in both league table, like climbing up continuously in both QS ranking and time higher education.
Yeah, and I think that was that their parameters, how we invested in research fed positively into both of those rankings. Yeah, so look, at the end of the day, strong research outcomes is going to impact strongly on rankings. It's very research driven, unless you look specifically at the teaching quality student focus sort of assessments. But research performance does tend to drive this. And again, in the Australian system, the top ranked universities are the research intensive universities. And they're also the lowest scoring on teaching quality. So it's a challenge. It's a genuine balancing act as to how a university invests.
So if any question more, so if for now, if don't have the question, so later from the online channel, you may send the question letter to our division. So we will collect and send to Professor Ledger to get the answer for you. So now we have end of the seminar, and thank you so much, Professor Nora, for your special lecture.
No, my pleasure, and thank you again for the invitation.
Okay, thank you so much.